Parenting Porcupines, episode 10 for season 5. It's the last one of the season, and we've got a good one tonight. We're going to talk about the rage cycle. So, hey, welcome, the Libertarian Moms. We're on the air. Episode 10, the rage cycle. I don't know how well this is named, actually, but I think we'll just kind of work through the topic here. It starts with Sound of Freedom. That's what it starts with. It starts with me asking you guys about this movie, Sound of Freedom. Have you seen this movie? And you're like, I don't know what that is. And I was like, how are you not seeing this in your corner of the internet? You have a specific neighborhood. I apparently have a different neighborhood, and I could not escape it. It was everywhere on my side of the internet, specifically on my Twitter feed. And I think that's because I'm heavily political on Twitter. So it's all, my, it was very politics. So anyway, Sound of Freedom, put out by a small studio called Angel Studios, an independent studio. They needed to drum up some buzz for it. And so they leveraged the rage cycle and they played the two sides against each other. They went into right-wing conversations and said, this is the film that the left doesn't want you to see. It's going to blow the lid off of this child trafficking. You're going to see all the Democrats that are complicit in this, and I don't know how much of this conspiracy theory stuff you guys know, but apparently there's some kind of chemical, adrenaline kind of chemical that's exuded when children die. And this chemical is then bottled and it makes people look younger or be younger or live longer. I'm not sure. But Hollywood.
Pretty sure that was an episode of South Park.
Exactly. This is fucking crazy talk. It's crazy talk, right? But anyhow, so that fuels these ideas in these right-wing echo chambers that Hollywood and the Democrats are all, baby murdering blood drinkers, and somehow that ties to child trafficking. I'm not entirely sure how. But the point is that one side of the conversation was, hey, right-wing people who believe this about the left, go watch this movie. It's going to blow the lid off of this. You're going to see the real side of what's really happening. Then the other side of it was, this is a QAnon conspiracy riddled garbage film. Don't go see it, right? Like that. And of course, because that's coming through the mainstream media, QAnon conspiracy theory, blah, blah, blah. Then, of course, the left is hearing this like, okay, it's QAnon conspiracy theory. The purpose is to pit these two sides against each other and to get everybody into the theater. And it came out on July 4th. And sure enough, a lot of people went and saw this film. And it turns out it's just a movie. It's just a movie. That's all there is to it. It's just a dramatization of one dude having like a hero story of trying to go rescue two kids from child traffickers. Like that's the film. It might be based on a true story. It might be totally fiction. It doesn't matter because it didn't do any of the things it promised to do. And the rage cycle built up in the media was just marketing. And the interesting thing is it wasn't in mainstream media. It was in all the podcasts and Twitter feeds and all those kind of alternative media pieces. And so I asked you guys about it. And you're both like, I got nothing, right? Like I'm not seeing
Well, I had heard of it. There were people in my Facebook feed who had seen it, but I legit thought it was a documentary. The way people
that's what we thought.
I thought it was a documentary, like it's undercover video of people doing horrible. No, it's Saving Private Ryan. I mean, it's Schindler's List. It's on a book, I guess. I don't know.
Except it's neither one of those films. And Steven Spielberg would be ashamed that you even made this.
I can't think of any other movie. I don't watch a lot of movies. So
we love the movies, right? So we go to the movies all the time. So for us, it was like, this is, of course, like we're going to go see it. We're just going to make our own judgment based on these two sides raging about this thing. And I was like you, I thought it was a documentary. And then we went to see it and I was like, whoa, this is not wait, what is happening right now? And then I will say this, the little kids that play the children in this film, especially the little girl, she did a fantastic job. What a great actress. Like, at the end of the day, this child actress deserves accolades for the role that she played. She did a fantastic job, right? But again, it's a fictionalized story. It's dramatized. This was not anything that was groundbreaking or earth-shaking in any way. And then the second example is Barbieheimer. Now, how aware of Barbieheimer were you?
Very, very, very.
I knew Barbie was coming out, and I knew Oppenheimer was coming out because my son wanted to go see it, and obviously he's not of age to see that movie. But I had not. I guess I had not seen the hype around Oppenheimer. I had, of course, seen the hype around Barbie because that's been pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, more so lately. Barbie's approaching $1 billion in global sales.
Wild. That's really wild.
I mean, it's awesome, actually, and we've contributed to it. We saw it twice. It's a fantastic movie. I would highly recommend it. It's a great movie. But here's the thing. The Barbieheimer thing was the fact that the two movies came out on the same day, and they are vastly different audiences, right? Oppenheimer is a historical drama, and I would agree with you, Jess. Don't let your kids see it if you haven't seen it yet. There's some graphic sex scenes in it. We won't let Holly see it because of the graphic sex scenes in it. But it is a good film. It's a good historic. This one, Melissa, is on par with Saving Private Ryan and Schindler's List.
But yet again, it's a dramatization.
Yes,
it's not a documentary.
That's exactly right. Not a documentary. Yeah. And then the idea was if you go see them both on the same day, that you would see Oppenheimer first because it's going to get you all depressed and make you sad. And then you'll watch Barbie afterwards. It'll be light and fluffy. And I'll tell you, Barbie is not a light and fluffy movie. Like, it's being billed that way because there is some comic parts in it and kind of there's some really serious messages in Barbie that are worth sharing. So I wanted to bring this to our conversation, not just to talk about which ones are you going to let your kids see and how do you talk to your kids about, these kinds of films, but also to talk about the marketing engine behind both of these, which was intentional to put butts in seats in the theater, try to get people to buy tickets, go to the theater, buy popcorn, spend your money sitting there. There's an article in the Washington Post I read today about people misbehaving in the movie theaters, like scrolling through their TikToks, answering phone calls. There was some theater where some dude was naked. People just not knowing how to be in public anymore. And the Washington Post article was trying to kind of hypothesize why that is, right? But there were so many people going back to the movies for these particular films that people are still talking about that, right? And I put this in the show notes, but we're talking about Barbie eclipsing or getting close to $1 billion worth of sales. So clearly this is something that has worked, right? And I think, so Sound of Freedom has made $155 million already. And so it worked. The marketing worked, right? Them going to these echo chambers, stirring up these controversies. Before we went to see Barbie, Charlie had seen something on Twitter that said that it was a super woke anti-patriarchy movie. It was trash and you shouldn't go see it. And we got back and he goes, so how was it? I go, it was a super woke anti-patriarchy movie and it's glorious. It's wonderful. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's absolutely awesome. So, but people were already trashing it before, right? Trying to get people mad, trying to make people protest, trying to be angry about what it was doing and what it was saying. And that rage cycle, the using podcasters and influencers to fuel the rage cycle and push people into the theater. I think this is the first time we've seen that occur, but it's not going to be the last time. We're going to start to see more of it as the primaries come around, where that distributed media, that non-mainstream media starts to take a front seat, and candidates start putting themselves into these echo chamber conversations for the purpose of advancing their message to a willing audience, to an audience that wants to eat up what they have to say. Okay, all that was like this huge lead in for me to get all pissed off about content creators. I'm not quite there yet. So
just sit tight though. We're getting there.
Yeah, sit tight. It's coming. So my first question for you guys is as you're thinking about the influences that you are exposed to, number one, how high would you rank mainstream media in terms of where you get influenced? And then what kinds of things are you listening to and consuming outside of mainstream media? And why do you choose those outlets? Jess, let's start with you.
I don't really consume mainstream media aside from local news. Our local news is pretty good. Our outlets here are pretty good. I typically, I guess, just look at what people are talking about, and then I go and figure it out. I don't have any specific outlet that I look at particularly. I just kind of surf around until I find the information that I feel like is probably accurate.
So you're waiting for the people, like regular citizens in your sphere, to mention topics, and then you're going out and finding information about those topics. Okay.
Yeah.
Melissa, what about you? Do you have sources of mainstream media or non-mainstream media that you're listening to?
No mainstream media. I've given up. I get most of my, honestly, I do follow like our local Charleston news on Facebook. So I see the articles and the stuff they put out, the newspaper. But I get a 1440 Daily Digest.
Yep,
and
I
it's
get
just
that too.
a rundown of headlines. And I've got the Medium app on my phone, and it pushes notifications to me. And if it's something interesting, I'll go, oh, and I'll read the article and look at it. But I've given up. I'm too tired. I can't deal with it. I don't want to know.
Exhausting.
Unless there's something like imminent coming towards my house, I don't really care.
And even then, I'm probably going to spend a long time researching it to make sure it's actually coming toward my house.
Yeah. I want to know about a hurricane. Anything else?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay. I'm like you guys. I listen
people
to
yelling at each other.
I get the local news. We do that either at 6 to 6:30 right before the national news, or from 7 to 7:30 after the national news. But I try to watch the national news, and we flip through all three. So we have ABC, NBC, and CBS, and we'll flip through all three, and we'll watch as they're covering pretty much the same stories, and usually in pretty much the same way. And then I watch, you guys know, I watch Meet the Press every Sunday. So I will sit down and put myself through an hour's worth of Chuck Todd, bless his heart, every Sunday. Bless his heart and mine, as we spend an hour together. And
I don't know how you do it.
Blissfully unaware of how pissed I am on my couch.
We used to watch the news every night, but no more. It's just the national news. Mm-hmm. It's not worth watching to me.
Usually by the time it comes on, we've already seen most of the stories they're going to be covering, because Charlie and I are both on X. We're on Twitter and we follow a bunch of news sources on Twitter. And so we'll see all those headlines and click through those. I follow Al Jazeera English on Twitter. I follow, just all of them. I follow all the major news outlets on Twitter. So you'll see all those things there. And then of course we consume a lot of podcasts too. So Words and Numbers, and they're usually talking about something recent. We listen to Megyn Kelly, the Megyn Kelly Show. Charlie listens to that more than I do. And I listen to it more during the school year when I've got 20 minutes going downtown and 20 minutes coming back. So that's kind of like what I'm listening to on the way to and from school. And then we do Andrew Heaton, which Heaton tries to be politically neutral. He leans a little bit more left libertarian than others. But yeah, we're definitely in some echo chambers as far as libertarianism is concerned. Like, we definitely want to hear the free liberty take on most everything. And so I guess that kind of leads me to my second question. So are there issues that you've had a particular feel for or a take on that you thought, like, this is how I feel about it, and then you consumed some news and it flipped your opinion on it?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm more likely to change my opinion from talking to other people and hearing their experiences and their, opinions and points of view about what's happening specifically. Those things are more likely to change my mind in terms of how I feel about the news, or maybe if it's like a policy type opinion about what's going on, I'm more likely to change my mind from talking to other people rather than hearing other news, unless there's some factual information that's coming out that changes the situation entirely. That's a different matter, but just opinions, right? Mm-hmm. Coming from my neighbors, my community, have a much greater weight than news outlets.
Sounds like, Melissa, if you're consuming Medium, because Medium is pretty much blogs, so it is people writing their opinions on these topics, and sometimes they'll include like research and hyperlinks and things like that.
I said Medium. I meant Ground.
Oh, sorry. Grounded News.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Wrong thing.
So Grounded News is an interesting app because it will tell you the political lean of each of the articles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good app. I think the only reason I think I got to a place with Grounded News where I needed to have the upgrade, like I needed to pay for it to be able to actually access the articles. And I don't pay for the news.
Yeah, I don't pay for it.
Yeah.
I don't dig that deep.
Yeah. And I've seen headlines before that I'm like, I want to click on that and like read more, but then I'll notice that it's like the Post and Courier and I'm like, I'm not giving them my money. I'm like, I refuse.
Open up an incognito tab.
Look at that. Get around the paywall. Okay. So part of the reason I wanted to talk about this too is this, because we have these echo chambers, we have these pockets of the internet where people have different access to different information. We're not all consuming the same truth necessarily. And so I think that's part of what's causing so much discord. Like there's a sense that, people believe. So I'll give an example. So there are 3 counties or 3 districts in South Carolina that have already gone to year-round school. And Richland 1, which is one of the districts here in Columbia, put a vote to the parents as to whether or not they wanted Richland 1 to start going to year-round school. And a friend of mine said, I mean, why would you ask the parents? That's ridiculous. They're not educators. The educators know best what needs to happen for the students to be able to learn. And I was like, what? Like, as this is coming out of her mouth, I'm like, what kind of take is that? Right? Like, but in her circles, I would assume these democratic circles, right? Their sense of trusting the system, trusting the educators, trusting the administrators is so thick and so deep that for her to vote for her opinion and some other parent's opinion to be side by side, she didn't think that was valid. She thinks the parents don't know what they're talking about. And I was like, that is the complete opposite point of view that you will find on my side of town, because on my side of town, we flipped the entire school board last year because they weren't listening to what the parents wanted. And the parents were like, we'll show you. And they voted them all out of office and put in a bunch of new people, right? So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I guess, I don't know, there's not really a question at the end of this other than to say, like, the experiences that you're having either with media or with these opinion circles, do you find that these are opinions that people are repeating and they seem to all be the same? Or are you seeing a diversity of opinion based on who you're with and is it talk at church is different than talk in your neighborhood, than talk at work? Like, or is it like they all seem to be the same? Because we're libertarians, so we all sound the same.
I have a lot of variety in my circles. And I intentionally so. I try to interact on social media because based on your interaction, like that's going to drive the content you see, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, or maybe not Snapchat, but TikTok. The things you consume are the things that they will continue to show you, right? Mm-hmm. And so I intentionally interact with multiple types of people from different backgrounds, different parts of town, different churches, different schools, different political parties, because I want to make sure that I'm being exposed to those different opinions and those different experiences in my feeds. So I don't feel like my corner is an echo chamber per se. But that's something that is intentional, right? And I don't think a lot of people understand that that's actually something you have to work at doing, because social media is not going to do that for you.
Right. But that take that I just gave you on the year-round school, that the parents can't be trusted to make that vote. Had you heard that take before?
No, thankfully, because I wouldn't have been very nice in my response. That one might have gotten
I
physical.
see that all the time. Yeah.
No, you've seen that before, Melissa? That the parents can't be trusted?
I'm in a Facebook group that leans very heavily pro public school system. They're against vouchers, they're against school choice, they're against parental involvement, apparently, of any kind.
Yeah.
But I'm in the group.
That's absurd.
They do.
We need to do a whole episode on that. That is going to be an episode because I have a lot to say about that.
Season 6, yeah.
Yeah.
Add that to season 6.
That's absurd.
I comment on stuff and reply in my head a lot.
Well, here's what I say about that,
because I don't want the argument.
Because everybody
thinks a reply and then back it out.
Yeah, everybody thinks they can do it for their own kids. It's that they don't trust other people to do it, to do the right thing, right? Like for kids. So I don't think that this person, I thought this person felt like she probably had plenty of authority to make the choice for her own kid, but she doesn't trust that other parents are going to make the right choice for their kids. And I thought that was really interesting too, because we talk about that on the libertarian side all the time. The hardest part of liberty is granting it to other people. And trusting that they're going to do the right thing with it, right? And so it doesn't have to be the thing you would do with it, but it's going to be the right thing for them. And letting go of that and feeling like you don't have to control those decisions that those people make, that's a big leap.
It's so
hard. Especially for central planners and people who are bought into the government school system and that sort of thing. That's a huge, huge climb. So letting the parents vote, I thought that was genius. Hey, District 1, let's let all the parents vote. And if you don't show up to vote, your voice isn't heard, right? And then, we're going to make the choice, based on what the parents say. And for the parents, and I don't know what the outcome ended up being, but I just thought that was like, what a take. I had never heard that take before. Everybody I know in all the circles I'm in is like, parents should absolutely be the ones to decide for their own kids.
Especially something like that upends your entire life.
Yep.
Your whole schedule is up.
Well, and you have those people, sorry, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole very briefly. You have the group of people that will say, well, it's not, the school's responsibility to take care of your kid, because a lot of people who are concerned about a year-round school, it's the schedule change, right? And so that is met with that pushing back of, well, it's your child, it's your responsibility. Well, yeah, it is. But this compulsory schooling on this schedule that has been done for as long as public schools have been in existence, it's the norm, right? And you're asking people to change their norm, which they've prepared for, they're ready for. Like, that's a big change. And so you have to understand. Okay, I'm done. I'm done.
We're gonna add it to season 6. We're gonna get deep into that in season 6, because here's the thing: is for tonight's topic is, if we're talking about this rage cycle, I think it's about baiting people to get into the fight, right? Like, bait them into the fight, and they're not interested necessarily in giving you a full picture or giving you all the information that you need or all the data that you need to make an educated decision. They're interested in having you bark louder than the other side. And especially if they're using this rage cycle to promote something like either a political candidate or a political ideology, or in this case, Barbie, Oppenheimer, and Sound of Freedom, right? Where these are films and these are savvy marketers that are going, hey, we don't have a whole lot of money. So what we're going to do, not the Barbie stuff, by the way, they've got plenty of money. But I mean, specifically on Sound of Freedom, we don't have a lot of money for marketing. So where can we get the most traction and where can we get the most distance? And it was like, oh, well, let's go on these podcasts and talk about what a huge problem child trafficking is. And even if those podcasts are heaping the blame on Democrats with these wild conspiracy theories about drinking babies' blood, right? Like, or the adrenaline or whatever it is, there's a specific type of there's like an actual word for it. And the name of the thing, oh, this is what kills me with this whole thing. The name of this supposed miracle adrenaline thing that they're consuming that keeps them young came out of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Is it the melange?
It's like legit an author grabbed a term and used that term to talk about a drug in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's It's a myth. He made it up. It's fiction. And now it's being like perpetuated as if this is a real thing. Okay. And then talking about Jess going like, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. So here's my like 30-second rabbit hole. These ideas, these conspiracy theory ideas come from content creators who want to keep you connected. They want to keep your eyeballs. They want to keep you paying attention. They want to keep you engaged with their content, plugged in with their content. And they will say whatever they have to say to keep you there, right? Because they get paid either with views and streams, if they're like YouTube, right? And they're getting paid by the streams, or they're getting paid by their patrons. They're supported by their patrons. So you got to give that extra content to your patrons, or they're selling merch. And these are the 3 ways content creators make money, and they got to keep you engaged to do it. Yeah, they're corporate sponsors, right? So we think everybody says I can trust them. They're not part of mainstream media. They're not part of, the big cycle. They're not part of, but of course they are. Of course they are. They're still selling.
They get paid the same way.
They're getting paid exactly the same way. They are selling content exactly the same way as NBC, CBS, ABC, and some of them there's zero transparency. I mean, you don't know how much they're getting paid. You don't know what the ad buy is. I mean, you can figure out what an ad buy is for the NBC Nightly News, right? But you can't, in some of these cases, you have no idea how much Joe Rogan's getting paid by Johnsonville Brats or whatever, whoever's sponsoring him, right? Like, you don't know. And so I don't know. I guess I get a little bit frustrated with people who are consuming that media and acting like it's all pure and true. And of course it's, it's the right place to be, when in fact they have the exact same conflict of interest as every other media company that gets paid by advertisers.
It's really hard to. So Caldwell Jackson's on some social media, but he doesn't spend a lot of time on it. But Caldwell, he loves YouTube. That's his jam. He loves YouTube. He likes to watch gaming videos and what's that guy? Is it Mr. Beast?
Yes,
the
Mr.
one
Beast.
that does all the
I do like Mr. Beast.
Yeah, he loves all that stuff, and he'll watch videos and he'll go down these YouTube rabbit holes, and he'll come in and he'll tell us, did you know? And he'll go on some elaborate explanation of something that we didn't know because it's garbage. And so then we have to have a conversation about why it's garbage and why you can't believe everything you see on the internet. And he's like, but it's on YouTube. I'm like, yes. And those people are getting paid to put that out there. They're not getting paid to be
There's no vetting
honest.
process.
Yeah.
We're on YouTube right now. There's no vetting process.
We're not
Did you know this guy is purple? And,
we are not getting paid for this.
That's true.
We do this.
Not getting paid. That's 100% true.
Simply because we want to make the world a better place for all of you lovely listeners, viewers.
I mean, we have a platform too, right? Like, we're trying to promote what we think is the right version of parenting, which is that free range concept, the giving kids liberty concept, helping them to learn to make good decisions instead of making those decisions for them. Like, we have platform, we have principles, we have things we're trying to spread too. I mean, we absolutely believe, I think all 3 of us, that parents ought to make the choices for their kids as far as education is concerned. This is in complete diametrically opposed to this person I spoke to earlier today who thinks school administrators, God help us, ought to be making these choices, right? So, I mean, I guess that's the whole point. And maybe it's because I've been in it. We have a radio show on Saturday mornings. I've been in talk radio since 2017, I think is when we started that show. And maybe because I'm in it, I know that I'm not an expert, right? Like, I'm talking about what I know. I'm giving you my opinions on the things that I understand. I'm a pretty smart person. I've got some skills on the writing side, so I can do this writing show. But I'm still like, if people were to say, man, Casey told me everything I need to know about writing a book, I'd be like, did she? I mean, what let's be honest, in 250 episodes, I still haven't told you everything you need to know, right? And so that, for me, there's a cynicism that comes with anything you consume to go, is that true? And how do I figure out if it's true? And then how do I feel about what I'm hearing? And if it's not true, can I trust this source to tell the truth on anything else? And I think that that healthy sort of critical thinking around what you're consuming is what we all need to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just don't think that many people have it.
They don't.
It's hard. It's
work.
It's work. Yeah.
It takes effort. And that's not something people are willing to exert these days.
Yeah. They just want to take it for face value. Tell me what I need to know, and I'm just going to move on. Right.
Well, we've become accustomed to having everything instantly. Like we live in a right now society, and everything is right there right now. If you want it, you get it instantly. There is no, when we were growing up, we had these things called encyclopedias. And if we wanted to know about things, we had to go to the library, unless you were lucky enough to have a set of encyclopedias at your house, which I don't know that you would really consider that lucky, maybe more fortunate. But it wasn't always like that. And so we remember a time when you actually had to do the work to learn the thing you wanted to learn, to research the thing you wanted to research. And now it's so easy, and people want it to be easy. They've gotten used to it being easy. They want it to be easy. And so I think there's just no value. People don't put value on the research, the learning, to the working for the information.
I had a perfect quote today. Perfect quote today from my kid. I don't want to learn. I just want to know. Driving lesson. We're going out for a driving lesson. I don't want to learn. I just want to know. Like, I just want to get to the place where I know how to drive. I don't want to go through the process of learning to drive, because there's mistakes and there's frustration and there's fear and there's trepidation and anxiety, like all these things that you experience as you're learning how to drive. I don't want to put up with any of that crap. I just want to jump to the part where I already know how to drive. And I'm like, baby, you don't ever know anything that you didn't learn, right? Like, you had to have learned it in some way. But I think you're right, Jess, because people are learning, put those in little air quotes, they're learning from Google, right? I go to Google, I ask Google the question, it tells me the answer. I know this answer now.
Yeah.
Right?
Easy peasy.
I don't have to question it. I don't have to think it through. I don't have to decide if that's right or wrong. I just believe that Google has delivered me the truth.
It's pretty scary.
That's pretty scary.
I don't think I trust Google. Not that much.
I mean, we know that again, if we get back to like incentives, which is a very sort of cornerstone libertarian principle, people do what they're incentivized to do. Right. And so the incentives for Google are to deliver the most accurate results so that people will continue to use Google. Right. But at the same time, they have a pay model. And so they're also going to deliver the results that people are paying to have happen. And so thinking about it in that way too, like I have students that the idea of clicking past the first page of Google results, it's like, why would you do that? Everything you need is on the first page of Google results. I'm like, whoa. Like, if you
I rarely click on anything on the first page of Google.
If it says sponsored,
I skip. I don't even read it.
Skip it.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Scroll down.
My students won't click on the sponsored ones, but I click on the sponsored ones all day long. You know why? Because that's how Google gets paid. That's how Google gets paid. That's exactly right. So if I go to Google and I put in Amazon, I'm not going to click on the Amazon listing. I'm going to click on the sponsored Amazon ad, right? Like,
I do that. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. But as far as like, I use Google a lot to ask questions to prep for shows. So I use it to prep for this one, to prep for our writing show on Saturdays. And those are the ones that I'm looking at second page, third page, fourth page of Google results, because I'm looking to get a little deeper into the topic. And a lot of times the deeper ones, the ones that have more insight and a little bit more critical thinking, don't have the right keyword algorithms to show up at the top of the page. And they're certainly not paying to show up at the top of the page, right? So sometimes you got to go a little further. Not always. A lot of times the writing ones show up right where they need to be. Like, oh, look at that. Okay, so this topic today, this rage cycle topic, is really about helping people understand that what they're consuming on the internet is maybe not necessarily the truth with a capital T, and then trying to encourage those critical thinking skills. So how do you teach your kids to get to the second page of the Google results, to ask questions, or to be cynical about what they're seeing and reading on the internet?
I mean, we ask questions about it.
Mm-hmm.
So if Caldwell comes to us and says, hey, Joe Brown on YouTube said that the sky is brown today, I'm going to say, well, have you been outside to look at the sky?
Yeah. Touch grass.
Maybe you should go outside and look at that grass, So that's a pretty simplified example just because I don't have one, on the tip of my tongue. But those are the types of questions we ask, because oftentimes if you ask the right questions, they can immediately see the absurdity in it, right? Or the fallacy, if it's not just completely absurd.
Yeah.
They quickly pick up that maybe that's not right, and then you can have the conversation about what is accurate or what is correct or how to find the correct information. But we always default to asking questions.
We had that conversation about the writer's strike when our kid came to us with the writers are on strike and they need to be paid a living wage. And I was like, okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm a writer, there are writers who are making plenty of money that are supporting their families. Right. And now they're not allowed to work because they're part of a union, and the studios aren't allowed to hire them if they're not part of the union. And so they had to join the union so they could get a job. And now they have this really good job, but they can't work because they're part of a union that's gone on strike, because there are other writers who are not as good a writer and don't have as good a job, right? And they're mad because they're not getting paid. So how fair is that, right? So it turned from a conversation of like, fair living wage, and this is and we started talking about collective bargaining, and when does it work and when does it not work, and who does it work for, and that kind of thing, and the incentives behind unions and how the unions are formed and what kinds of deals they make and that sort of thing. We went back to the last time there was a writer's strike, and why was that strike happening? And I mean, so it gave us a chance to really kind of unpack what that looked like. But certainly it was that sort of, I've seen enough TikTok that told me this. And then she said it to us, and we were like, whoa. Let's talk about unions, right? Melissa, how do you teach your kids to get past the second page of Google results?
The number one question is, what does this person have to gain from telling me this? Number two question, do you have a personal experience that tells you otherwise? Third question, where is this person getting their, if they're stating facts, this is a fact. Okay. Where did you get that fact? Go back to original sources, not third and fourth down the line playing telephone. And it's all different at the end. So those are my 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, good. What's incentivizing this person, right? Do you know better because of your own personal experience? And then the third one is, where are the
original
show me the receipts.
sources.
Show me the receipts. Yeah.
Where did this information come from? And if you can't, because I love genealogy, and I'm big into genealogy and hearsay. No, I need an original document that says this information on it. If that doesn't exist, it's not true. So you gotta.
Man, I could dive a little deeper into the anti-QAnon rabbit hole if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to say, suffice it to say, there are savvy marketers out there who are intentionally manipulating the non-mainstream media. And we as consumers of that media have to be aware of that. And when it comes to what's going to blow the lid off of something or be, the most amazing thing that's ever happened ever, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So let's all just be a little bit more cynical about what we're consuming in the media. All right. So any last thoughts?
No, that just made me laugh because I love Hell's Kitchen. And they always do on the next episode. And it's always, the craziest episode ever. The most unbelievable. I'm like, every episode is the most unbelievable ever.
And it's always believable.
Yeah.
It's like, always believable. It's never unbelievable.
The most whatever. Like, okay, they can't all be the most whatever thing.
Well, they can.
Possible.
They can all be the most unbelievable because they're never the most unbelievable. So that one wasn't. So the next one has to be, right? And then that one's not. So the next one has to be.
Well, no, but you're hitting on exactly my point, right? Is that every time a content creator says something that is shocking, and then they say something else that's even more shocking, and it gets perpetuated again. That's where this crazy crap comes from, is them having to one up the game the next time around, right? It has to be that much more, that much extra the next time around. And that perpetuation is how these things get so completely ridiculous. I mean, and like I said, this is not meant to go down the anti-QAnon rabbit hole, but I mean, some of this stuff that's in that space, that's in those neighborhoods, it is wild. I told you guys about the quantum financial systems that were going to be gifted to us by benevolent extraterrestrials. And because if aliens showed up, the first thing they would do is fix our economy. And that's what they're going to do, right? Like, come on, man. Come on.
They'd get out the probes.
Yeah.
And then probes.
And then if you question it, or if you don't, if you have a, that critical thinking piece where you're like, do you have personal experience that might say otherwise, right? As in, there's never been a financial system that's ever completely fixed everything, right? Like, that's not a thing that actually exists. Or, what does this person have to gain from telling me these things, right? Once you start doing those things, then you just don't get it. You just don't understand. You just don't know, right? You're like, okay, you're right. I probably don't.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay to not be in the neighborhoods where aliens are going to save us all. Like, I'm okay to not be in those neighborhoods. The Barbieheimer neighborhood, though, I did enjoy being in that one. So, all right, this has been Parenting Porcupine, Season 5, Episode 10. This is the last episode of the season. We're going to move to Season 6 in the fall. We're probably going to be kicking it off sometime around the South Carolina Libertarian Party convention, where we're hoping to get some kind of spot talking to or with or about the debate. So fingers crossed that happens. But keep an eye out on parentingporcupines.com for some release information about when the next season is coming up. And of course, we'll always take your topic ideas, use our Facebook page or our YouTube comments to give us ideas of things you'd like to hear us talk about. But we're definitely going to be talking about whether or not parents should be making schooling choices for their kids or whether it should be central planning and administrators. Thank you very much, ladies, for tonight. Thank you for a great Season 5, and I'll see you in Season 6.
Bye.